Morning, Sarah.
There she is. Hey, Sarah. Very nice. All right, I guess people joining us. Enjoying the rain this morning.
Yeah.
Kind of raining and a little snowy for next week. Thank goodness.
Finally.
All right, well, first of all, welcome everybody. We are going to let it go for a couple minutes, probably as more people join us. We've got very good signups and attendees interest in our first Coffee with the Mayor. So just give us a couple minutes and then we'll get going.
Oh.
All right, well, why don't we go ahead and get going? And so I'll go ahead and kick it off. My name is John McCormick. I'm president of the Lafayette Chamber for this year. My wife and I own La Miranda Music, and we're really happy. The Chamber hosts a monthly, or more or less, Coffee with the Mayor. Typically it is in person, as with everything else going on this time of year. We have transitioned to Zoom, but hopefully you'll find it very interesting. I'm going to introduce Mayor Kendall in just a second, but just logistically, what we've got is there's two ways to communicate with us. There's a chat that you can use just to for logistics, and I know Holly and Sarah from the Chamber will be commenting in there, giving supporting information. However, this is a Q&A. It's supposed to be a dialogue. It'd be better if it was in person, but here we are. If you have questions for the mayor, click on the little Q&A icon, which I think is probably on the bottom of your screen or depending on your platform, and enter your question. And what's going to happen is we're going to hear from Mayor Kendall initially, and then Jay Lisson, our executive director, will take over. He has a few questions from his perspective in the chamber, and then we'll open it up for all the questions that you've entered. So go ahead and enter them now, and we'll try to get through all of them by end of the session. And if not, we will, if we can't get to them, we'll certainly respond via email or text or however we want to communicate with you. And this session is being recorded, just for information. So with that, I'd like to turn over to our new mayor and let her introduce herself and give us a little update on what's going on with the city.
Oh, thank you, John and Jay and everybody at the Chamber. Thank you so much for offering this platform to reach out and talk to everybody. I do want to make this interactive. So please, ask whatever you want, whatever you can. So real quickly, just when my kids were young, we Candels, I created a word we used for situations like this. We say that we're skited, which is short for scared and excited. We did this to help the kids understand how they were feeling, like on the first day of school, or like me today, starting a new job here as mayor. And I don't take that lightly, I'll be honest. There are good reasons to be afraid because we're a city under shutdown orders in the middle of a global pandemic that is absolutely surging. But I take great comfort that we are receiving and delivering vaccines, and even here in Lafayette. So I see a light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to take a lot more work, but it's going to come. So, but more importantly, I really believe that we have a really strong and unique city council right now that should be able to continue with all of this great work. I'm excited that we have an opportunity, a real once in a lifetime opportunity to reopen our city. And I want to start thinking now and find ideas and learn from this tough time. Literally, how do we bring back our vibrant downtown? I've been reaching out to staff and department heads, and I want to reach out to all of you. Literally, if you have any great ideas, let's start thinking about them now, because the reopening will happen hopefully sooner than we can get there, and let's get prepared. So for me, we haven't decided on our entire city goals. I'm just one vote among 5 city council members. But for me, I've got my top items are public safety. We've got a upcoming housing element that'll be due in 2 years that will take a significant effort by a huge swath of our city. And I want to try to be as transparent and open about the direction we're going to take our city. We also have a lot of new state and state laws that have come down and are definitely eroding our local democracy here in Lafayette. But we have to comply, and we will. But it just makes it a complicated path when we kind of weave all that in with our general plan and our housing element among these new state laws. So I believe in our next year or two, those are going to be the biggest items that are going to face our city. Also, wildfire safety, and I want to get Firewise started in our city. But then, really most importantly is our work on our equity and inclusion task force. We know we have a lot of work to do. Systemic racism exists in our city. We're going to have a La Miranda meeting, a Tri-City meeting, and we're going to try to come up with a concept of a La Miranda coalition of diversity and equity groups, and try to give them a forum and give them a voice, because we want to be the people listening to them. This is not something that city council will dictate. It doesn't work like that. We don't know what is needed. And so we really want to be able to give a voice for all those people that are underrepresented and know what's going on, and we can help engage with them and enable them and help do the right things in our city. So with that, those are my priorities. Hopefully at least some of them will get done this year, and hopefully and beyond. But thank you again, and I'll welcome all your questions and answers. Thanks.
Excellent. So I'd like to turn over to Jay Lisson, our Executive Director of the Chamber, to ask a few questions. And again, reminder, if you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A, not in the chat. Then we can kind of keep track of them and make sure we get them all answered. But Jay, take it away. Oh, Jay, I think you're muted, actually.
Good morning, everyone. And Susan, thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully we'll do a bunch of these this year, and keep in touch, even though we can't be together. To hit on a couple of topics that you just started with, one of them, I just read this morning that down in LA, at the Port of LA, 700 people have contracted COVID, and which means that it could shut down the port. That's sort of a major, macro issue. Do the cities talk when you have your city manager meetings and so on? Are you guys working on sort of major things like that as well? Or are we in our own silos when it comes to this pandemic?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I had not heard that. We get almost daily updates from Casey Elliott from Townsend and Associates, and he's keeping us in touch with the macro events, the federal stimulus coming in, other things going on in the state. I had not heard that, but yeah, a port shutting down with 700 workers could impact the entire state, and I'm surprised to hear it, and I'm saddened to hear it. Yeah, so no, I had not heard it. Thank you, Jay. But we are getting updates that are on the macro level through our lobbyists. Thank goodness. It's been a lifeline for us at the city.
Okay. Going and staying on the COVID topic for a minute, this would be a question about the balance between the economic risk and public health. And as a former restaurateur and someone who's very interested in making sure that our city succeeds economically, my feeling is that restaurants are at the very base level of our economy surviving. And currently, of course, the Contra Costa and the Bay Area is all under a shelter-in-place order, and we can only do to-go food. There's been a lot of discussion. There's been some cities that have already sued the state, saying that you have to open up outdoor dining. And this has been, something where there has been some research done. There is some science to back up the fact that it could be dangerous, but there's also just as much, it seems, science that would suggest that by not having places to go like outdoor dining, you wind up being indoors, which is the number one way that people are getting COVID. So, has there been any discussion with the county or with the state to really maybe take a look at some of the competing conversations about that maybe outdoor dining would not cause a horrible risk. Even the CDC says that this is not one of the major ways in which people are contracting the virus. What do you think?
Yeah, wow. Wow, Jay. Yeah, nails it on the head. This is, the restaurants and the schools are clearly the number, one and one um, most controversial situations that we have right now. And so we as a city, we don't have our own health department. We
Right.
can't, we rely on Contra Costa County Health Department for guidance. And Candace Anderson, our supervisor, gives us all of the updates and tells us what we in Lafayette, what we're supposed to be doing. Um, we are following that right now because we don't have our own health department in
Right.
order to study it, right? But as a scientist, I read all this stuff. I understand the pluses and the minuses on all of it. Um, I would love to be able to open outdoor dining. I mean, if I had my choice, I would. But if I could, do I know that it's absolutely safe? No. And
Right.
and that's where these vaccines are just, they're such the crucial element. And I think everybody now, and with the new, hopefully with the new federal government response, they are part of our frontline workers, right? They're part of our grocery, our frontline workers.
Yeah.
We get all the workers vaccinated. Yeah, no brainer. I think that it's like the same with the teachers. They should be at the front of the line trying to get everybody back. On top of that, I know our city, we have a general reserve, and I'm going to anticipate your next question is how do we help out our restaurants? Oh boy, oh boy. So Narup and I have already spoken about it. We have a reserve. I know it was mentioned at one of the other council meetings that we could tap into it and go under what we typically aim for. We could. We could also wait for the next stimulus round that apparently is going to have some
Yeah.
funding for cities. And 100%, if and when that happens, we already know, our number one, I would say, if not the number one priority, I would imagine it is our number one priority, is our vibrant downtown, which includes our restaurants. So we were already talking about it. If that is delayed, then maybe we will make a stopgap effort and maybe tap into our own funds until that can come around if it looks like it's being delayed, especially if it gets delayed like the last time. The last round of stimulus was delayed by months and months and months.
Yeah.
So we're already talking about it. Our restaurants are critical and they're on their end, and we need to support them, and we will. But the outdoor dining, it's a tough call, right?
Yeah.
I wish I had if I don't think we even have the right as a city to
No, we don't.
enforce it. And
No,
so
we
that's
don't.
that. I know. I'm sorry.
I was merely suggesting that, why aren't we at least having the conversation at the county level? It seems like, Dr. Furtado has made the decision that this is unsafe. It was backed up by Dr. Fauci. I mean, but there are other people in the medical field and scientists that have suggested that this is not necessarily a real big risk like other things are that we're doing right now. Just to break away from that topic for a moment, one other thing: we've got so many housing projects on the board already. I think like 18 of them. I see that on the city council agenda for Monday night. There's a 20 unit condo project on Huff, and then of course Corporate Terrace, which is going to be literally 200 units, and losing a lot of office space and businesses for housing. Understandably, we know that we're going to add housing. So my question number one is there concern that we're going to lose a lot of the business that we currently have, people that already have their offices or businesses here, in preference to housing, if that makes sense financially for someone to build because they have the right to. But also because we're a little bit concerned about losing business. People have moved here so that they can work close to home and so on. The other issue is infrastructure, and what will happen during the construction of all these projects going on at one time with circulation and transportation and so on. Any feeling on that?
No, it's not a big topic at all, really,
Okay.
in Lafayette, really. Wow. Okay, so yeah, the unintended consequence of our 2012 ruling to allow housing by right in the east and west ends of town has resulted in a fundamental loss of jobs, because housing by right means that anybody who owns that land can choose to not put the businesses back. They don't have to. They have housing by right, and they can put housing in the entire complex. In the corporate terraces, they're retaining some of the retail, but it's not nearly as much or commercial as they have now, without a doubt. It's a big problem. And our jobs housing ratio, we try to have a jobs housing balance. And, the number to go for, is around 1. And we are dropping. We are losing jobs faster than we are gaining jobs to make up for the housing that we're building. It's a big problem. Our housing element, which is coming up in January 2023, we have in November, we had a meeting where we discovered we are looking into 4 to 5 scenarios of what Lafayette will look like, basically in 10 years. And these scenarios all focused on building housing at the BART parking lot and all along Deer Hill, along the north side of town. Some of them have some upzoning in downtown. One of them that you should be very interested in, one of them removes the protection in 14 acres of our downtown core. What does that mean? That we'll have more housing by right in our downtown core. We may lose our businesses in our downtown core. To me, I am not a huge fan of that. I think that we should be protecting our jobs. I push back saying we should be requiring a replacement of each of the jobs. That would be one end of the spectrum. So that would be, you take out a job, you have to return a job, along with all the new housing. There are cities that have put ordinances in place to mandate that. That is something we can consider. Or in our housing element, we could choose to go, instead of housing by right on our east and west ends, we could go to mixed use. And so you still have to have retail or commercial on your first floor, but you could build housing on top. Yeah, I think it is an absolutely fundamental conversation that the GPAC is addressing, that the chamber needs to start weighing in on. And I think that we're not approaching this right now, at least, with the conservation of jobs as an emphasis, which I think to me is a mistake, because we can't lose our jobs. We love our jobs downtown. And I love our vibrant downtown in our core. I think that has protected a really nice and unique area in our city. And if we lose that and we allow just literally housing projects in our core, the problem is that it breaks up your retail, and it's less likely that people will walk in between the retail. And I would more likely encourage more retail and encourage more walking right in that area, rather than discouraging it. So please, everybody get involved. GPAC, signed up for the notifications. Yes.
John, you want to open it up to some questions?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jay. Yeah, Mayor, we've had a couple of questions come in. Actually, Dennis Eric and one of our board members gave us the first ones. I'm going to leave those to the end because those are kind of our good ones to wrap up with. But I will kind of open with one that was entered by a citizen who said, who asked, is it a priority for you to do something about the dips in the 24 West Highway exit onto Lafayette?
The dips in, okay, there's two things. The dips means this one easement, or they're talking about that, or they're talking about the roly-poly freeway.
I don't think it's not the freeway. I think it's the exit.
Oh.
So wait, the dips in the exit. So go back. I'm sorry. I need to understand that more, because there's a lot of.
Oh, that's a question. Is it a priority for you to do something about the dips in the 24 West Highway exit into Lafayette?
That's Caltrans. We can ask. We know. I've got friends that call our Lafayette Freeway and all in there the roly-poly freeway, because it seems like every 20 years we have to do that. I think it is because we have these earthquake faults along Lafayette. There was a big study about these earthquake faults that run perpendicular to Highway 24 underneath the underneath the BART tracks, as well as underneath Highway 24. And we just kind of have to, rebuild like every 20 years as these move. And so, yeah, we can ask Caltrans, and I'm sure it's on their list.
I know there is
Yeah.
some evidence of that. In the second part of that question, which I think is probably a little more in your area, is there a priority to make an effort to find a new owner and reopen the cinema or the Park Theater?
Oh, the town theater, absolutely. Oh, the Park Theater Trust. The concept there, I think, is still viable even post-COVID. We need to get these vaccines out, and so we can all gather again together. But this kind of gives us a unique, gap in time in order to prepare for when our city is fully reopened, and we can take this time to continue the work, the great work by the Park Theater Trust in trying to encourage new business to come in there, new business model even. And absolutely, I think there's a viable future for that.
Great. Excellent. Another question that came in is, are you reviewing what other cities in different states are doing to see what Lafayette can follow? For example, outdoor igloos for 2 to 5 person dining, art walks, etc. So it's a good question. Are we looking at other towns to see what they're what's working and not working?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I would, closing down our streets and adding the outdoor dining on the sidewalks and everything. I thoroughly think that we should consider, possibly continuing with those things. I'm not sure the temporary igloos. I like it, love it. I'm not sure that our city has the resources to build that. I'm not sure our city would want us to spend our extra money on those rather than some fundamental help for our restaurants and everything to survive through this pandemic. I would rather have us think about our downtown and think about, think outside the box. Do we want to make it just one lane and expand our sidewalks and think about a far more pedestrian friendly downtown through our core? I would love to have us thinking about that, especially during these next 2 years with our housing element. That's the time to think about these things.
Perfect.
Jay, yeah.
John, could I just add something to that? So,
Yeah.
I'm always reading and trying to find, what other people are doing too. And one of the things that I've read about a few times going into this year is the 15-minute cities. And basically what it is that within a 15-minute radius, you can find just about everything that you need in that one area. And so that's sort of a model that a lot of cities are looking at right now.
And another city, they closed down their downtown in Grass Valley did. And I keep hearing about how cute it is now and how actually through the holidays, their retail, their shops did better than the prior years after literally shutting it down, make people go around their downtown rather than through it. And so you can walk in it, and apparently it's worked out really well.
You mean closed down to traffic, I'm assuming.
Closed down to cars. Yes.
Yeah. Very nice. Yeah, no, I think creativity. And to that end, this is another question. It's a little bigger thing. I think you've addressed a little bit, but maybe you can go into a little more detail. What plans do you have to support and encourage small businesses, including nonprofit organizations, so we can make sure that to sustain a vibrant Lafayette? I know you're calling for some sort of task force or some sort of creative thinking to encourage that. I don't know if any more details you want to provide on that.
So yeah, on Monday, unfortunately, we didn't get to launch it at the last meeting, but Cam Burks wants to have a reopening, a COVID response task force that hopefully, or actually ad hoc committee that will go forward and be bold and try to do the things that you guys are asking for as quickly as we can. And we are looking at funding. The Lafayette Community Foundation did an amazing job last year supporting our small businesses and nonprofits. Our business assistance program that the city is paying for. So same thing, our lobbyist, our Townsend and Associates, literally the city spent about $40,000 or so and brought in over $1.5 million to our businesses and nonprofits. Yeah, let's send that program out far and wide. I support that wholeheartedly.
I agree. It's a good leverage of our dollars, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Another question. Can you talk about the current process for moving forward with implementing the 8 goals and objectives white papers adopted by the council?
Yeah, there are the backbone on which we choose to emphasize, each year. So we basically are building on those. So when I say I want more public safety, especially around schools, that was part of our traffic and our safety around schools strategic objective. So we start with those 8, and then we choose pieces in there to pop up. Like basically there's going to be an emphasis this year on one of those things to really push for it and really make it happen. That's how I envision us moving forward. But as we go forward, and especially the transparency one, that's a big one for me too, is to get as much conversation out there and much transparency in our government, so everybody knows what we're doing and has an opportunity to submit their questions and concerns. And the process of bringing our community with us together, it always ends up being better. It always ends up being a better process with more buy-in and going through. Even though it's a little bit more difficult, I don't mind. Let's just make it better. So yeah, we build upon those every year.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, better. I think we're all in favor of that for sure. You mentioned housing by right, of course, and what it meant on the east and west end. And their question came in, and can this be changed? It was voted in 2012. Is it something that can be changed?
Okay, so this is where all the state laws come and play in. So SB 330 was Senator Skinner's law that said, basically, if we change our housing by right, we will have to make up for the lost housing in other places. So yes, we can undo it, but we'll have to be careful. We'll have to do it with the eye on those units that could have happened there. We have to make sure that there's places for those, even if we take away the housing by right. If we make it mixed use, then those bottom units that would have been used for housing, we have to find a place for them. That's what the state laws are doing to us. That there's one big caveat in that law is if it's in a very high fire hazard severity zone, which is basically the entire north side of Lafayette, north of 24, we don't have to do that. So even our BART parking lots, we actually don't have to upzone there. We don't have to put housing on our BART parking lots. We don't have to put housing on Deer Hill because of this exception for the very high fire hazard severity zones. We may choose to do it, but we don't have to. That's not true for downtown. So if we remove some of those and make them mixed use, we'll just have to get clever and find other places to put those housing units.
Yeah, that's kind of a bit of a rock and a hard place on that one.
Mhm.
Another question, this echoes what Jay was asking before about, and just commenting on the number of developments already undergoing. There's a question from Dave Clark. What about our planning department? Overstretched, overstaffed, operating under COVID restrictions and everything that. How is that? How are they being affected? Can they support all of these development projects going on with the amount of attention they really require?
Wow. Yes, it is very unfortunate. We are down 2 planners on top of that. They are stretched so thin, it is remarkable. We're trying to find ways to offload some of the things that can be offloaded to contractors, consultants. But the problem is all the cities in the Bay Area right now are going under their housing element. And so planners are scarce, especially good planners. But to be honest, we were just looking at that. And I think we need, as a city, to prioritize our planners and get them more resources. And so even if they're down 1 or 2, it's not like we're done, because things are happening so fast. And they are absolutely essential right now for so many reasons in our city, that I think overstaffing them just to keep a buffer for them is a prudent move in the future. And that's what we'll be proposing soon.
Great. So we're trying to hire the new planner. Sounds like that. Yes. Very good. Another question. This is following up on something I think was talked about a year or 2 ago pretty aggressively. Is any planning going on to build a city hall somewhere, like at the Boswell site?
Right now, that got it's not in play right now.
Right.
We tried. The owners of the Boswell site are not. They don't want to sell, to be perfectly honest, and they don't want to sell at a price that we have considered to be fair. And so we can't, as a city, we we are hamstrung as a city legally. We cannot pay more than what is, the fair market value, what it gets assessed for. We simply can't. And so even if we wanted to, we can't go in with this super lucrative offer going, yeah, come on, sell it to us. We can't do it. And so we have to go to fair market value. And if they don't think it's fair, then we're kind of stuck. It's not like a private offer. It's a public offer by a city, and we're limited in what we can do.
You can't really do some sort of fancy negotiations or anything like that. Yeah, they know what hands what you're doing. You're gonna do.
Yeah, it's a public entity.
So are there any other plans? Then I guess the question is to follow up or conclude that one. Are we looking at any other sites right now, or is the city, is that on hold right now, given everything else going on with the city?
I'm not aware of any other sites that we're looking at right now.
Okay, good, thank you. This following up on Jay's comment, actually, about the 15-minute city and keeping everything close together, which is a really interesting concept, of course. Does rezoning need to be done to make Lafayette a 15-minute city? Or is there just a lack of variety in businesses that would make that happen? I know it's a concept we just talked about, but. Yeah.
I think that the 15-minute city would mean basically our downtown core around our BART station. That's what I'm imagining that this is addressing. We are limited on the north side of BART. And so it's not, our 15-minute city is actually a half circle, right? It's just into our downtown. And so, yeah, I think that would be marvelous. I think that's a wonderful idea. Can we do mixed use? Sure. Do I want to protect our businesses downtown? Absolutely. Like I said, other cities have put in protections to protect if you lose a job, you have to, if you take it down for housing, you have to build another job there. There's no net loss of jobs. There's one way we can do it. Another way we can do it, it's some other cities have done, it's called land value recapture. And I think that we really ought to be looking into this. It's when we upzone. So if I'm imagining we are going to upzone. So we have 35 units per acre in our downtown now. If we go to, and that's a 3 to 4 story unit. If we want to upzone to 70, which is a 5 to 7 story, and keep our retail, these are pretty tall buildings. But there are cities that have what they call land value recapture. When you upzone, you basically have increased the value of your lot, without a doubt. There's no argument on that. So we've given away value. There are cities that recapture some of that. They turn it back into either impact fees for infrastructure and or affordable housing. And so I think that we definitely, especially on the cusp of upzoning, huge areas in our town, we definitely should be looking into this and figuring out how to make that work for us. It's free money, but I don't think we should be giving it away. If there's a way to get that and feed it back into the things that are priorities for our city.
Excellent. Of course, as Jay said, we also support infrastructure, and that's a good way to kind of get money to do that as well. Yes, big things. So, another question, as an architect, I guess, what is the city doing to promote equity in housing to prompt accessibility beyond just the minimum code requirement?
So right now, between all the state laws and everything that we do, so equity right now, we're getting back for every market rate unit that we build, which is the only way that we can get affordable units now, because there is no other funding for affordable units right now, because redevelopment was taken away back around 10, 15 years ago. About 10 years ago. So the only way that we get affordable units is by building a market unit, and we get 15 to 20% affordable out of that, deed restricted affordable. And so the way we promote it is to build more market rate housing, and we get some affordable units. But if you look at that argument and you apply it, to the Lincoln project that's going on right now, which has basically 25 units in that apartments in that building right now, which are by price fit into our affordable category. But basically we're taking those down and we're building 71, new units, but with only, like 10 affordable units. And so in some ways we're actually losing some affordability in our city. And it's just a complicated, by one size fits all state laws can lead to situations like this. So net loss of affordable housing in our city, even though they aren't deed restricted, to me, it's a big issue. It's kind of like losing our jobs. And so if we're taking down older apartments, which are basically our affordable units in our city, and we're taking those down and rebuilding a whole bunch of market rate things, we're actually less affordable. And so to me, it'd be nice to be able to, tackle that, but we can't. These are dictated by the state, and we don't have a lot of say in them anymore, unfortunately. So I would love to encourage more, of course. Like I said, inclusion's the key here to me. Is we want to encourage to want to live here, and I think that's probably our biggest problem. Not so much that we don't have affordable housing or not creating affordable housing, but it's attracting the kind of people we want to live here, and make sure that they know that they're included in our city.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a tough problem, I guess. And of course, you're balancing the rights of the people who own the building to sell or do whatever they want versus the state and what the city wants and what's best for the public at large. So yes, it's a tough balancing act. A question a little more specific, but in that same vein, I think, given the increased housing element, right, the RENA numbers, I read that there is an effort to challenge the validity of those numbers statewide. Has Lafayette considered joining other communities to challenge?
Absolutely. I personally am trying to get others on my council to join me in that effort. So in Southern California, over 100 cities have signed. They're about 9 months to a year ahead of us. And so we're kind of on their coattails. So they're leading the pack, and they are challenging the total allocations by the HCD. So HCD gives us the total allocations, then they give those to ABAG, and they pass them out. So ABAG's not the bad person here. It's the total allocations from HCD that are too high, and there is ample evidence that they are too high. They were done pre-COVID. Freddie Mac disputed them pre-COVID as well. And so yes, I think 100% we deserve to get accurate numbers, right? We're going to make this huge effort to upzone our city. And if we're upzoning, but it's not actually correct, we deserve to know. And so I think that we should challenge it and have the audit of the HCD. Steve Glazer is our representative and our state senator, and he's actually on the audit committee. And so there is an opportunity for us to try to encourage him to audit them. Do I know if it's going to end up in different numbers? No, I don't. But I do know Department of Finance, who does make the projections that the HCD should be using, has altered their projections since HCD did these allocations. The census results are coming up probably June or so, and so which should be a huge correction in the Department of Finance projections that HCD should consider. So yeah, between those two things, absolutely, we should be challenging it because we deserve to know the right answers.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another question. Can the importance of the general plan, this is a comment and question, can the importance of the general plan for the future of Lafayette be advertised more and communicated in lay terms to the community so there is more involvement, such as town hall meetings, community area meetings, signboards that are written plainly? Is it your neighborhood meeting was very eye-opening. More people need to know about the general plan, about how the general plan will be critical to housing and the loss of businesses.
Yeah, thank you. I could not agree more.
Great question.
Yeah, great question. So the general plan, yes, and you go to the e-notifications on our website, and there's a general plan update. Please sign up, everybody, to get those notifications for the meetings. Where right now they're having twice monthly meetings, and you can write in your comments beforehand if you can't attend. Or you also can speak at those meetings. Yeah, everybody should be involved. I went around because I had so many people asking me questions, and I did go around and have some meetings that kind of described the intertwine of the housing element, the general plan, and our state laws. It was just to get people up to speed who haven't been attending these GPAC meetings, because we need to have a collective knowledge, and so we can move forward. The GPAC is starting their big public outreach effort. And so it should result in far more people knowing about it. In the meantime, if you have any questions, of course, I'm available to answer any questions, as well as probably our GPAC members as well. but definitely we need far more visibility on it. And like I'm encouraging the chamber in some of these scenarios that, basically, removing the protection of our downtown core is probably something you might be interested in. And so I do encourage everybody to get involved and involved early, because these decisions are going to be made within this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, I know the chamber, we have a representative on GPAC, and we're definitely very involved. It's critically important. You mentioned this, I think the last question, then I'll wrap up in case anybody else has any others you want to bring in the last minute. You mentioned redevelopment agency and redevelopment money no longer available. Since the state wants all this affordable housing, why does the legislature not reinstate redevelopment agencies? Is there any political movement or political will to do this?
No.
No.
And okay, caveat. Okay, so Governor Newsom, the one big bill that would have helped cities that passed the Senate and the House was vetoed by Governor Newsom. So no. So at the top, there is no movement right now to support redevelopment and or support, basically any money coming back to the city. However, in this new cycle, there are two bills that are coming up, and I'm going to see if I can try to grab those quickly. There are two bills. There's a bill by Portantino and a bill by Caballero, who are bills that would give more flexibility to cities, especially to cities that have a lot of commercial or industrial that is really being underutilized, or big shopping centers. And these are the kinds of things as a region. Like, I'll be honest, Hilltop Mall, I think all of the now retailers are basically out of that mall. And so, but they can't, it's not zoned for housing. And so these laws would actually help cities to rezone those things if they wanted to. And so there is some hope, there is some legislation out there that will give some flexibility to cities to try to help them get more housing into places where they might not have been allowed to. But no, the whole concept of a redevelopment agent or refunding, nothing, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
All right. I think it's our final question from our attendees, and it's a two-parter. And I'm going to reframe it a little bit from Dennis and Eric, which I think is a good one. There's lots of things going on with the city, lots of challenges. It's kind of easy perhaps to get a little despair if you look at everything behind that we have. So I guess the question is, from your perspective and your administration and what we want to achieve, what's kind of the biggest challenge you see facing Lafayette, and then what's our biggest opportunity? Like, what's the positive side? But from your perspective, from a priority perspective, what do you think is the biggest challenge that Lafayette is facing right now? Reopening safely and the way we want to, and bring back our downtown and bring back our restaurants and our schools, and be able to live as a community again. I honestly, this is a once in a lifetime thing that we're going through. And I want our community, I want Lafayette to come out of this. We have a chance to come out of this, as well or better than a lot of other communities. And so we want to embrace that chance and, really think hard about how we want to come back and make our wonderful city thrive as well or better than we used to. And I think we can. I really honestly think we can. We've got a good core bones in our community, where we've got our big grocery store, pieces that anchor our downtown. Let's build in between those and think thoughtfully and create something wonderful there. Challenges is, infrastructure and the upzoning that may be required to do that. Our housing element, these RENA numbers are literally, I know. So we have 10,000 housing units right now in our city. What we're being asked for is to build 2,000 units, but it's actually even worse than that. So it's actually we're going to 20% growth over 8 years, which Lafayette's literally never done. In our history of Lafayette, we've never had that kind of growth. In the whole region of the Bay Area, there isn't enough. Hi, kitten. There isn't enough raw materials in our state of California to support the kind of building, even in the Bay Area, that we're being tasked with. It's just kind of crazy. But if you look at those numbers and how many affordable units that we're supposed to build, we would have to build 5,000 units. That's 50% growth in 8 years in order to get that 15 to 20% affordable units to trickle out
from there. And so I have nothing. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of nonsense. And unfortunately, the state laws, especially SB 35, kind of puts in penalties to penalize us if we don't keep up. And so it's not a good situation. We may have more growth than we ever imagined because these numbers are so high, we can't possibly achieve them. I mean, we really honestly can't. But then all of a sudden, ministerial approval of market rate housing, we will have no chance to review them at all. And so that's the way we're being set up right now. And so I think that's a big challenge. I don't know how else to frame it besides let's get our state legislature to rethink some of the things that are going on. Let's challenge some of the things that are coming down from the state.
Yeah,
We
I
can
agree.
do that as a community. Yeah.
Right. And of course, COVID being such a tragedy, but it is an opportunity to kind of let people, let's rethink where we are. I
Right.
think that's all we have. Jay, I don't know if you have any final words or final thoughts or want to comment on some upcoming chamber events before we wrap up.
Well, let me just ask one more question regarding BART, because I think that's another big issue for the downtown. We have always had a parking issue in our downtown. Steve Falk used to say we have 50,000 or 50,000 parking spaces, but they're all 85% of them are behind fences because they're on private property. One of the biggest issues with parking has been either employee parking or BART parking. And so, that's sort of what brought on the need for parking meters and some of the lots and so on. If BART does decide to build on its property, it's only responsible for having like either a half or one space per unit, and they are not required. They are not required to add any parking back that they would take to build housing. That is going to cause a real problem for our merchants downtown when we're back to normal. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I think it's, we fought as a city. Sorry, my cat is like all over this. AB 2923, yeah, the way the law is written, they do not have to replace even one BART
Right.
parking that exists right now if they build housing on that site. And yes, Jay, because we are they qualify Lafayette City as a city that needs cars. And so we get one parking spot per new housing unit.
Yeah.
So we're better than a lot of the different BART stations. Some of them get nothing. So that's not true. We get one. So we'll have one per unit. But that's actually true for a lot of the housing units around our city right now, the way the state laws are set up. We only get one spot per housing unit. It is an enormous problem. It's an enormous problem, not just for our downtown, but our neighborhoods. Back up, they go up into Happy Valley and Happy Valley Glen on the north side of Lafayette. If we upzone and we have to do all this upzone and we somehow don't get more impact fees from them in order to help address the infrastructure, yeah, we're gonna have a real problem. We don't get enough through our impact fees in order to address the large infrastructure issues that would come from a massive upzoning and building in our downtown. We just don't. And so this land value recapture, I think, is a concept that we honestly need to do and get an idea of how much money may come back in and get a plan of where we're going to be putting all this parking and all these cars. We have to, as planners, we have to look forward to that during this process. Because yeah, it's terrible. Yeah.
Maybe I can call on Holly. Holly, you want to join in and maybe tell us about some of the upcoming events?
Absolutely. Good morning. My name's Holly Sunny. I'm the Communications Director at the Lafayette Chamber. Thank you, Susan, for your wonderful Q&A this morning. And thank you, John, for hosting. The Lafayette Chamber is off and running, helping our business community. And we encourage you and invite you to join us for our January Mixer. It's going to be on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the 27th at 6 p.m. You can find information to register. I just put it in the chat, but you can find more information about this event as well as our other events and our upcoming coffees on the Chamber website.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Holly. Thank you, Jay. American Delph, thank you very much. And I agree. I'll have to echo Holly's statement. Excellent, excellent job. Great Q&A. Great questions. I mean, I think that's really what makes it kind of interesting is the kind of they're really educated citizenry and active. And as you say, you know, we want you to be a successful American Delph. If you're successful, we're successful, right? So best of
Thank
luck
you.
balancing all of these challenges.
I need help. Help me out.
We got your back.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the chamber. I'd like to wish everybody good morning, and hopefully we'll see you at the mixer on Wednesday. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.